Call the April 17th Broken Arrow City Council meeting to order. We'll start with invocation. Pastor Rich Maganero.
If we can bow our heads for a word of prayer. Thank you, Father God, for your concern and safety over our city. Thank you for the government of this city and their willingness to acknowledge you and ask for your guidance. As we continue to look forward to our future and discuss the plans that come before this council, let us keep our motives right, our hearts humbled. Please continue to do a work of unity and give wisdom, especially to our city council, our mayor, city manager, along with all the heads of the departments. May we all work together with a common goal to make Broken Arrow a city of life, city of safety, and a city of peace. In the name of your Son, amen.
Amen. We have the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call next. Roll call.
Wimpy.
Twice in a row.
Here. Parks.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Udi.
Here.
Thurman.
Yes, here. Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to have Boy Scout Troop 975 do the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join them. They'll come down front.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Troop 975. Item 5 is consideration of consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed?
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Wimpy. Yes. Parks.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
Udi.
Yes.
Thurman.
Yes. Okay, item 7, public hearings, appeals, presentations, recognitions, and awards. We have the administration of the oath of office and loyal oath to the finance director, Cynthia Arnold. Beth Ann. And welcome, Cindy.
Thank you. I, Cynthia Arnold,
I, Cynthia Arnold,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
that I will not
knowingly receive,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any money or other valuable thing
money or any valuable thing
for the performance or non-performance
for the performance or non-performance
of any act or duty
of any act or duty
pertaining to my office,
pertaining to my office,
other than the compensation
other than compensation
allowed by law.
allowed by law.
I further swear or affirm
I
further
further swear or affirm
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of finance director and treasurer
the duties of finance director and treasurer
for the city of Broken Arrow
for the city of Broken Arrow
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Cindy. Item 7B, consideration, discussion, and presentation, approval of, and authorization for the mayor to execute a proclamation declaring the week of April 15th through 21st the Volunteers and Police Service Week in the city of Broken Arrow, in recognition of volunteers and police service and presentation of a symbolic check from the volunteers for their provided services. Brandon, Chief Berryhill.
Council, Mayor, it's no secret that we have a lot of volunteers in the police department. They infiltrate the city in a good way. There's many functions that we could not do without their help. Their service is invaluable. Lisa Ford's also here, their coordinator. And we have a check we'd like to bring down the volunteers and Lisa and maybe take a picture. And we got a proclamation for you also.
Yeah. Okay. Come on down. And first I'd entertain a motion to approve this proclamation, then I will read it.
Make a motion to approve proclamation declaring the week of April 15th through the 21st as Volunteers in Police Service Week.
Second?
Motion second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. The proclamation says, whereas the strength of America lies in the hearts and souls of our citizens. Across our country, citizens are donating their time and talents to improve lives and strengthen communities. During Broken Arrow's Volunteer and Police Service Week, we recognize and celebrate those who serve a cause greater than self. Whereas, through the dedicated efforts of Broken Arrows volunteers, we are building a culture of service, responsibility, compassion, and particularly among our young people. And whereas in Broken Arrow, more than 16,994.25 hours were donated to the police department in volunteer service alone. And whereas their acts of kindness have profound effect on people's lives and on the future of our city. And to recognize those who have demonstrated a sustained commitment to volunteer service. And whereas the volunteers in police service, the Broken Arrow Police Department Reserve Officers, Victims of Crime, CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, Broken Arrow Police Department Chaplains, Broken Arrow Animal Control Volunteers, and the Broken Arrow Emergency Management Volunteers save the city of Broken Arrow $410,241.19. Therefore, I, Craig Thurman, as the Mayor of the City of Broken Arrow, do hereby proclaim the week of April 15th, 2018, Volunteers and Police Service Week.
All right.
Thank you. You want to, yeah, we want your picture with us too. Hey, y'all squish in. I know y'all get that. We can get better than that. Squish in really tight, really tight. Get in front of the tall one. Thank you.
I know. I waved. Who's that waving back there?
Again, I want to thank the volunteers. That $410,000 is a lot of money that saved the city and saved the taxpayers. We appreciate that. Item 7C, presentation on the proposed 2018 bond issue, bond program. And Kenny Schwab.
Okay, I'm just going to touch base with the council first before Kenny comes forward. Just a couple of points for the city council and those in attendance this evening. What you have before you that was just delivered last Wednesday is the proposed general obligation bond package with the remaining projects that I would like to ask the council to consider as a part of the final package. The report that Mr. Schwab is going to talk to you tonight about includes projects that are still above what I would call the cut line, and those projects that unfortunately have fallen below the cut line. It's not because, as council knows, that these are not important projects. It's because the directive of the city council was to make sure that we keep the tax millage rate of 16.46 for debt repayment the exact same. In other words, this will be a no tax increase. And so we had to go through the painstaking process over the last 45 days approximately to reduce the package, which what was originally presented to the council was right at $285 million. And from that 285 and the three public forums we had, the cost of the projects, potential projects, increased to about $290 million. There were several additional projects. And what you have before you tonight is a package that is $222,070,000. Now, in order to meet the council's objective to make this a no tax increase / keeps the property tax rate the same, we need to get this under $211 million. So we're going to have to reduce this by just a little over $11 million. Unfortunately, in order to meet your objective, and the objective, obviously, with the public's made it very clear, they'd like to see a package that's a no tax increase in well. Now, the good thing is that with the city's ability to get secure grants, for example, through the efforts of the Mr. Schwab in engineering and construction, we secured a $4 million grant to help with Olive from 61st to 71st. And so over the next 10 years, I feel very confident that through the STP program, the the Tiger program, as well as the President's initiative to rebuild America with infrastructure, there is the potential for us to secure additional funds, because approval of this package will allow us to have what they call the shovel-ready projects. And the fact that we have been to Washington several times to participate in the development of that public policy, I feel really good that we should be able to secure some funding, which if we do, it would allow us to focus on those projects that don't make the list. Or we can combine them, which would free up money from unnamed projects for engineering and construction to get some of those other projects funded. So it's exciting to see that if this should pass, there could be additional funding to help us, because our applications are always going to compete very strongly for any federal or state funds. So tonight, what I'd like to do really is 4 things. First is just make the announcement, once again, that we are having the final public forum before the City Council has to make the decision on the ordinance and the resolution deciding what's going to be in the package, and then calling for the election on August 28th. And then secondly, Mr. Schwab's going to give you a short presentation on what the package looks like. He's going to focus, and you're going to hear on historically what percentages of the packages that we've looked at. Obviously, streets is very important, but he's going to discuss the package. He's also going to talk a little bit about the importance of public facilities. I think that's a forgotten item. Remember, 82% of our total budget is personnel, and our largest resource to serve the public is our personnel. So therefore, having state-of-the-art facilities that meet those expectations to be able to do their job is very important. And there's $9 or $10 million in this package being proposed to help support our employees in the facilities they have to work in. And then the final thing is just to let the public know that after the public forum, probably the second meeting in May, you're going to have an ordinance before you to have you consider for first reading with regard to what that package is going to look like. So we're trying to continue to be very transparent about where we were, where we are, and where we end up. And so with that, unless there's any questions, I was going to ask Kenny to come forward, and then we want to hear from the council about their thoughts on the package, and then we can get ready for next Monday night. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate this opportunity. Understand that there's odds given on how long I will go. The smart money's on over. Let me just go talk about the important dates that we've had. As Mr. Spurgeon kind of alluded to, there was a special council meeting on Saturday, January the 13th of 2018, where we actually started looking at the program. The council actually took a look at that, and we were around $285 million at that point. We took a lot of input from that point, and then the next step was to go to the public. We had 3 different public meetings on February the 22nd, the 26th, and 27th. And one of the most important things there was to gain the input from the public that may help shape this bond program. And what did we do with that information? We had our marketing firm, 6PR, pull together the comments from that point and actually gave us a public input report. And as we went through to try to eliminate and reduce this program, we listened to what the public had to say in those meetings, and we'll touch on that just briefly. Another important point at that time was the information that we gave to the public is what you see on the screens. It was basically a document, a spreadsheet that showed every project, the total, gave a brief description and a generic or a general name for it right now. The language might be slightly different when we go forward with the bond, but it describes the program. Also put it in 5 different propositions. We had the public facilities, we had public safety, we had quality of life, we had stormwater, and then transportation. One of the most important things was to trim this program back to, as Mr. Spurgeon said, that magical number somewhere around the $211 million. How do we get there? Mr. Spurgeon put together a city manager's ad hoc committee, if you will, a cross-section of some public citizens to help us reduce this program and also to input the questions and the comments that we got from the public. So on March the 27th, the committee met and went through the comments. We actually had a lot of comments where we ended up adding a few projects, increasing. So as we go through the spreadsheet, I want you to understand two main things. There's a cut line, which is kind of down at the bottom, and it will read proposed, like public facilities, projects removed from the bond program. So we're proposing to remove those. And if you look at the public facilities, the one that's in yellow, you'll see that 3 projects are proposed to be removed. Those are projects that are either deleted in its entirety from the first publication, the public meetings, or reduced the amount. So that's a reduction. If you look above that line where we have proposed public facilities, projects remaining in the bond program, and this is similar throughout each proposition, you'll see about 4 or 5 columns over off to the right-hand side, you'll see a little note. If that project was added or increased, we identified it and had a footnote. So you really have just 2 types here, either an increase through adding or some modification to the amount, or elimination, a reduction. So bottom line, in the program that we presented to the public back in February, we had Proposition 1, which was the public facilities, a total amount of $28,500,000, and it ranged at about 10%. Public facilities normally range about 10% or less through our 20-year snapshot. We went back 20 years, 1997, and took a look. When we had public facilities on there, 10% was about as high it would run. It would run a little bit less. So the original number that we presented to the public, as I said, was a little over 28 million. After going through and reducing and modifying, we're recommending at this point, what's in there is a proposed $24.3 million. So a reduction of 4.2 overall. Now moving down to the public safety. Let me back up. The public facilities is right at 10.9%. Moving down to the public safety. In February, we proposed about $30.1 million at 10.7%. After we've gone through projects we removed and projects that we've modified, it's at $20.6 million, which is a total of 9.3%. So that's a reduction from what we showed the public the first time of $9.5 million overall. Then the third proposition would be the quality of life. In February, we had a total proposal of projects of $29.1 million, which was 10.3%. And today, the proposal is at 18.75, which is at 8.4%, a total reduction of $10,350,000. Proposition 4, stormwater. There were only 2 projects that were reduced in scope and size, budget-wise, for a total reduction of $1 million. So we went from $15.25 million, about 5.4%, to $14.25 million. And you'll notice that the percentage is up to 6.4% because the total package is reduced to what Mr. Spurgeon had said, just a little over $222 million right now. Now the last proposition is the transportation, the streets, the signals, traffic, anything of that nature. We had originally in February $178.37 million in that proposition for about 63.4%. Today, the proposal is $144.17 million, and it's at 64.9%. The reduction was $34.2 million. So the important thing here to note is the original program that was presented to the public was $281.32 million. Today, as Mr. Spurgeon said, we've reduced it down to $222,070,000. So it's a reduction of just over $59 million is the reduction. I think that one of the important things to note that Mr. Spurgeon asked us to do was compare to previous bond programs. A lot of the input that we received, both in the citizens survey back in October, November range of last year, and then again at the public meetings, was we need to address the streets. We need to address the streets. So we went back and took a look at how have we fared in previous bond programs, specifically with the streets. In 1997, the streets were about 75%. In 2000, the street was about 72% of the total package. The more recent programs from 2000 on, the streets have actually been less than about 60%. So this will actually be the third largest transportation proposal on proposition in the last 20 years, and it would be the largest since 2000. So past 18 years, this would be the largest program that we've been looking at for transportation. The other ones, the public facilities, the public safety, the quality of life and stormwater, they're all falling within a reasonable percentage that we've seen in the past when they were in the program. So I think the important thing to realize here is that through the citizen committee that we took input from and the input from the meetings that we've had, there was a little bit of addition. Specifically, I think one of the projects that was increased in scope would have been Aspen from Tucson, 121st South to Jasper. That's what was presented to the public in February. In those public meetings, the citizens said, you need to go further south than Jasper. You need to go all the way to the Indian Springs Sports Complex, widen that. It's creating a big traffic jam. So we increased that amount in the transportation program. Those were kind of the projects. There were just a handful of them, about 6 to 8 projects that we had increased. The increase was a total of about $10.2 million from the original proposition that we showed back in February. So at this time, I'll be happy to answer any question, or I can go into more detail if you would prefer me to.
Any questions of Kenny or comments or detail?
Just a question on clarification, Kenny.
Yes, sir.
If you go back to a couple of questions.
Sure.
The proposed public safety projects, the fire station that you've moved down to remove from the bond program was a new fire station to replace an existing fire station. Is that right?
In the public safety proposition, what we actually presented to the public in February, there was actually 3: a fire station 1 replacement, a new fire station, which may have been like a fire station 8, and then a future identification, like maybe fire station 4, because it's aging, so maybe we need to address it. When we went through the committee, we kept 2 of them in there and took 1 of them out. Took the new fire station, which would be fire station 8, I'm assuming. We went ahead and took that out, and that 7, sorry. I can't count. Put that below the public, the cut line. So hopefully that answers your question.
Then that would put that fire station that was taken out, which fire station? 7 and 8, that's kind of confusing to me too.
We took a new fire station, whichever, if it was going to be 7 or going to be 8, we took it out. And we kept 2 fire stations in there. We kept fire station, well, actually 7 is staying in there, but 8 comes out. That's the new fire station. And 7, if you'll remember, we actually have, I believe, the land. In this is, it's at Washington, across from Arrowhead. We have purchased the land, but we need the construction money, so that's what this one is. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just real quick, Councilman, is the Ludwig study that we did a couple of years ago talked about where the city stations should be, and we also talked about the fact that we have existing stations that need to be replaced. And in the initial package, we looked at 3, and then we looked at the bonds and how they would be issued. And we have a commitment to build a new station or replacement station 7. Council authorized the buying of the land at the intersection of what I'd call South Main and Washington right there. That's 1. And then the other station we left in there, as Mr. Schwab said, was really it could be an 8th station or it could be a replacement station number 1. We really want to make sure we have 2 stations in the package so we can look at the growth of the community. The chief believes that there's a need for an 8th station up by the training center if the growth there continues. Or there could be a need to replace Station 1 instead of moving up to Station 8 and put a new station up in the northwest part of the city. But we definitely need 7, and then we need one additional station, either a replacement or a new one, in the next 10 years. And then we should be able to provide the coverage within the community. But to have a 3rd station in the next 10 years, based on everything we see, we think if it was an 8th station, we'd cover that area. Then when we came back in another package, one of the first projects would be, like Mr. Schwab said, replacement for 4. That would probably be something the next time we go to the voters, we're going to need to replace 4.
Okay. Well, I knew we was talking about one in the northwestern. I knew we was talking about one on County Line that we bought the property for, and then the one that's to be built next, the one on across from the softball complex. Excuse me? And so I was just wanting to make sure I knew which ones were still in there
Okay.
and out.
The voters have approved the replacement station for 3. Council is authorizing selling the land. GH2 has that currently under contract for the architects. We also have some preliminaries for Station 7 with GH2, thinking positively that the voters will approve that in the package, and then we'll have to look at the issuance, looking at how we'll go about issuing, because you can see you're looking at about $5.5 million, and the first couple of years of the issuance are lighter, but by the time we get the Station 3 completed, the goal is to hopefully get those plans and specs done, and then be able to sell those bonds, and then rock and roll with the replacement Station 7.
Okay. Thank you.
And so my question, and you answered my question, I just, for clarification for the rest of the council and the audience, is on item 5 in public facilities. On the senior center, it shows $3.5 million to construct a new 5,000 square foot facility, which equates to $700 a square foot, which doesn't equate. So you replied it's 20,000 square
Yeah,
feet.
let me-
So you'll replace the language on that.
Correct. And just for the public, when we originally did this, we put a 5,000 square foot facility for the senior center. We actually hired an architect to kind of lay it out and meet the needs, do a needs assessment with them. And once we did that, the 5,000 went to 20,000 square feet. So you're correct. That 5,000 needs to be corrected in the comments.
Okay, and 20,000 probably won't be enough by the time it's done.
Probably.
Well, just one clarification on that is that what the senior folks, and Vice Mayor is on there, and I know another member of council are involved as well, is their plan is to realign their activities if the voters approve this, to where you're going to see a realigning of actually where they have their activities, because they have all of it in one place. So if we were able to go forward with this, then that new facility would allow them to have to accommodate current, and to hopefully, at least for a while, to be able to accommodate the growth they're experiencing in memberships. And so we will have a protected light that will be able to walk back and forth across the street if necessary. But the plan is to build the parking lot and the facility, and then the realignment so people could actually stay on this side of the road if should they choose. And that was made instead of going out and looking at building a second facility, which would have added some additional operating costs, which really were not affordable.
And the parking lot would also be able to service
Softball.
the softball fields to the east of
And that also gave them space for a future add-on, because they did, as you said, they wanted more square footage, some more space. I mentioned to them that maybe if we waited later, they could even maybe go to a 2-story, and they liked that because that would give them twice as much space. So they're already looking for additional space, but they're very pleased with what they're getting from here, though.
And since you brought it up, I think one important thing to note for the public is, in the one that was proposed back in February, we actually showed the land acquisition for the Senior Citizen Center in quality of life because it kind of did a dual purpose, but we've moved that up into the public facilities. So it's still in there, it just got moved, so if someone's looking for it, it's in a different proposition.
And that's the point I was making, is that land acquisition. Well, it says for Senior Citizen Center, it would actually serve multiple purposes.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to mention to council is I sent you an email last week as I stop and reflecting upon the actions of the council since I've been here, and I did that because the administration is asking the council to consider the 10-year package, and that's one of the decisions that you're going to have to make is, do we want to do the 10-year package or do we want to do something shorter? And I've always said that we've tried to be very forward-thinking in anticipating the projects that we believe will need to be done the next 10 years. That's why the package is larger, to be able to accommodate those needs. If you stop and think about what the council is working on right now, a couple of years ago, you adopted a tentative 10-year capital improvement plan for the utility department for the upgrade and the maintenance and replacement of all of your utilities, water, sewer, mainly. Secondly is that we're in the midst of updating our comprehensive plan. We're getting ready to kick off the update of our master plan for the Parks Department. The council has tentatively agreed to go forward and begin the process of exploring the creation of an innovation district in order to make sure that we have a facility or some type of area to attract those high-paying jobs that hopefully as folks come out of our universities, or we can attract folks to keep the high-paying jobs in our community, or to get people that move here have those opportunities. So we're looking at the innovation district, the comp plan, the master plan, the utility 10-year plan. We're going to be talking to the council this summer about a street maintenance plan for the neighborhoods for the use of the repurposed vision tax, to make sure that we're spending those funds to get into the neighborhoods, to do the overlays plus the rebuild. And so from the administration's perspective, we believe this gives the residents, this is one of the last pieces, the residents a roadmap to come in to say that Broken Arrow, as an administration, as a governing body, is that we have tentative plans to address infrastructure, to address the development, to address parks and recreation, all those things that make Broken Arrow a great place to live, work, and play. And this is really, from our perspective, even though it's a living, breathing organization, this is one of the last pieces that we need to put in place to show the community that we are trying to address what's important to them, that is transportation, that is parks, that is public safety, stormwater, and once again, the public facilities, quality of life. I wish I could give Scott Esmond the other $10 million that we had, but $19 million over 10 years to upgrade our parks, expand our parks, a new park. I mean, there's a pretty comprehensive package here that we're trying to make sure that we touch every part of town, and we do it in a very methodical way, in a very cost-effective way, and to meet your objective of making sure that it is not a tax increase.
Well, to that end, I noticed on down at the bottom on transportation, lines 8 and then 7 and 8, both coming below the cut line. And will those be able to be incorporated into our regular road maintenance relative to the increased sales tax, that sort of thing, to still address, because some of the downtown roads are pretty challenging?
We had a.
Does that question make sense?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
The city's going to receive, we estimate, about $3.6 million a year from the repurposed vision tax. And we had a multi-hour meeting about a month ago to look at how we implement the use of those funds. And we asked Mr. Schwab to come out with a recommendation on how much materials do we need to be able to do in-house projects. And also, first and foremost, to look at where is our talent and what should we be doing and what should we be contracting out. And so we came up with a plan that included making sure that we have funds for materials and supplies to do in-house work. Then we had funds to make sure that we do the road stripings, to make sure we have the proper markings for safety. We also talked about making sure that we had funds for signalization. There is funds in the package for signal upgrades or additional signals, but we wanted to make sure that we left the flexibility in there that when we have to upgrade the signals to the flashing yellows, or if we need a new signal, like there's 2 or 3 locations in town where there is the need for a signal. Plus, we just notified the Department of Transportation that we want to do a master plan study of Highway 51. and looking at the potential development in Wagner County there, where Zico is, for example, and there's a couple of areas that have potential for development, to make sure that that's a safe corridor to move. So there's going to be a need for additional signal there. And so we've left some capacity, and I believe we've got it down to where we should have about $2.5 million from the vision tax to be able to spend each year on the neighborhood rehabilitation programs. And if you combine that with the $25 million that's being proposed in the package, we'd like to go ahead and do some revenue bonds to be able to get caught up on those projects over a 5-year note, and then actually continue that to have the money up front, award the contracts for the concrete and the asphalt each year for the street department to manage those contracts, and then do in-house work with a focus on concrete, the sidewalks, the curbs, the slab replacements in the development. And so to answer your question is that we have a lot of catching up to do, obviously, because we had very limited funds. But when you think about over 10 years, $25 million from the bond, and then another $25 million from the tax, we could be spending approximately $50 million for the rehabilitation and maintenance of our streets, in addition to the funds that are in here for the road widenings and the intersection improvements to actually move traffic. So I know you asked for a short answer. I gave you a,
No, I didn't ask for a short answer. I asked for an answer. And so that would include the downtown streets?
Yes.
That, some of which...
And a long way around, yes. There's money directly in there for downtown streets, but basically First Street, Ash Street, those are both are on the plan, and we will continue to work off of the report with the pavement index condition, and we'll be using the funds from the tax to go in, because a lot of those streets are at the point where they can't be mill and overlaid anymore. We're going to have to go back in, and we're going to have to go down and from the base and rebuild them correctly so we can get another 20 years or more life out of them.
And to that point, because I asked the question about do we have bridge rehabilitation in this, and Kenny's response was we're pretty well caught up, but over the course of the 10-year period, we anticipate that there will be bridges that we may have to do some rehabilitation. So this isn't just about fixing things today or tomorrow. It's anticipating over the 10-year period that there are issues we need to address, and we've got them built into the bond package. So.
Any more questions?
Then next Monday night, the focus for Monday night, once again, where the mayor will welcome everybody, then each council member will have an opportunity to address the crowd that hopefully will have a large crowd. And then it's going to fall upon me to present a PowerPoint. And in that PowerPoint, I'm going to talk about the goals and objectives of this package, specifically discussing the 4 or 5 goals with the objectives of what we're trying to accomplish with this package. And I'm going to start it off, a little preview, to talk about what the voters have already approved and the fact that we have a lot of orange cones around town right now, and that's still coming when you look at the projects that the voters approved and where they are. Just to remind folks that their previous approvals have allowed us to do Lynn Lane and to plan for a number of other streets and communities. So really, we're asking them to continue that momentum that they've already supported these initiatives to continue to build with the infrastructure. And then we'll talk a little bit about the package, and then after that, then we'll go back into the Department of Transportation open house style, where we will actually have large Excel spreadsheets up that actually show what's above the line and what's below. We'll take that final impact, and then we'll update everything and bring it back to the council in May.
Let me ask a final question then. We started out at 281 million and was down to 222 million. You said we was going to try to get down to 211, and then you started talking about that some of those different projects could be funded by other sources. So the bond package, do we still need to get down to the 211?
Yes, we do.
So we're going to have a special meeting to decide on which ones we're going to cut out? Is that correct?
Actually, what I was thinking about doing, and council, we can certainly adjust accordingly, is there's several projects right now I can tell you that I'm not going to recommend. I've talked to some of the community groups that understand that this is not the right time to be going forward with those projects. And so I'm pretty confident that, I can think of $7 million to $8.5 million that I could eliminate immediately. However, I want to make sure we have the final public's input. And so what I plan to give to the council is the package. And my thought was to present the package, just like we're having this discussion, to give it to you the first meeting in May 1st, for any final comments, because we're running a concurrent path where we're actually starting to put together the bond language that was specifically what's going to be voted on. And so that my thought was May 1st, which is just a week later, is to come back in this exact same form,
Well,
Councilman.
that was my question. Who, are we looking for that other $11 million? And you think you found most of it, which is good.
Yes, sir.
But that does let the public know they need to be at this meeting for input, this final meeting, because we're still looking to reduce it $11 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we're going to do a robocall Thursday. Krista Flash is going to coordinate a robocall reminding folks of the meeting. We've been flooding social media. Councilmember Wimpy, she did the Take 5 that went out last night, talking about the importance of being there. And then we're going to hit everyone. We'll send out a press release. And so I think we've saturated the city. And when we do the robocall later this week, I would anticipate that we would have as many, if not more, than what we had at each one of the sessions that we held in February.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Michael. It is important everyone shows up on April 23rd, and we have our final discussion on this with the public, at least paring it down. The next item on the agenda is item 7D. It's a presentation update related to the Land Subdivision Code, basically on sewer backwater devices. Michael?
Yes, Mayor and Council. Michael Skates, Development Services Director. At the last council meeting, Beth Ann presented ordinance 3523 related to Section 6.2 of the Land Subdivision Code and several items that we wanted to update in that code. One of the items in particular was Section 6.2, which had to do with finished floor elevations and backflow prevention meters placed in a table on the face of the plat. Council, and let me back up. The reason that we've asked for that is because we require it, but what we found was it wasn't actually written into our land subdivision code. So we wanted to update that code so that it was clear that we wanted that on the plat. The council had asked if the ordinance required all lots to have backflow preventers on the sanitary sewer service. When I stood up here, I thought they did not, but it was actually related to the elevation of the next manhole downstream and being a foot above that. Council thought that the ordinance had changed recently. I wasn't aware of the ordinance changing, so I wasn't sure, but I wanted to go back and check. And so bringing this item back to you just to let you know that we did go back and research past ordinances. And I'm not going to read all these, but what we found with legal's help is that in 1977, that Chapter 24, which is related to water and sewer, was where we first saw a item within the code related to backflow preventers. And then in 1998, it was modified, and then it was again modified in 1999, which appears to be the current ordinance code adoption that basically relates back to the fact that it's related to the nearest manhole downstream being 1 foot above that for buildings having a backflow prevention. I went back and looked in the International Building Code and Plumbing Code, and I've attached both of those there for you as reference. And so our code is pretty much in line with the building codes and plumbing code, maybe just a little bit more stringent on the city side. But, so city staff recommends, that not to change the current ordinance. But what I wanted to indicate was that if council desires to have the ordinance changed so that all building structures have a backflow preventer, we can definitely do that. And I can answer any questions.
Yeah, and for some reason I thought we had done that, but I guess we haven't. I think that when someone comes in and has an issue with the fact that their house sewer's backed up in their house and how horrible it is for everyone when you think of that to happen to you, and the expense is not very much. I don't think it would. I know that our code can never be less restrictive than International Residential Code, but it can be more restrictive. And I'd like to see us look at that. I mean, I really think it's not that much of an expense, and probably a little pushback on it, but I do think that most people understand and get a percentage of the houses that are being built, put them in anyway, and instead of trying to figure out which one and having to put that table on a plat, if it was just required with every one, I think that would be a benefit to the community. And when the homeowner doesn't get their house flooded from raw sewage, they're not going to realize that because it doesn't happen. But from the people that it does, it'd be such a benefit for going down the future, to require that, I think.
And I agree with the mayor, and I think from the other perspective, from where we're sitting, from a liability standpoint, if everybody has to do it, then I don't think anybody can point fingers at the city and say it was your responsibility to warn us.
I don't have any problem with it, actually, either way. I do think that it definitely, you can't get any, you can't change the law. I mean, you've got to at least do it that amount, from what the code says. I think the new codes explain it better. I like it better from just the floor level. Instead of going 1 foot below this or 1 foot, nobody's going to get out there and measure the 1 foot below. So it's the upstream manhole, the level of the upstream manhole from that house. Right. And what they're looking at is if it stops up and builds up enough pressure, it's supposed to knock that lid off. I do know that anytime you put a mechanical anything in a plumbing system, it's going to wear out. So if everybody has it, someday they're going to wear out, they're going to have to maintain it. So there's going to have to be proper maintenance on it. But I certainly, if I were building a house, I'd want to put one in it no matter where that upstream manhole was at. So I wouldn't push it, but if the council's in agreement with it, I certainly support that. Putting the manhole, the check valve in there and make sure it's accessible. And if you put it in while you're running the sewer, you're going to look at $300 or $400 to go to add one to a sewer, and put it in when you're putting it in. You're not going to add that much money to it because you've already got it uncovered. So,
okay,
I know it's going to be kind of unique probably for our area, but we have a lot of growth in Broken Arrow, and we're just trying to protect those citizens. So I have no problem with adding it to go, and it's easier for the inspectors. I mean, you're going to know that you expect everyone to have one on there, irregardless of where that manhole's at.
Right.
Well, this would only apply to new construction. I mean, the rules aren't changing for existing structures. If you sit below it, you have to install it, or, because, I mean, by ordinance, that's required already.
Right.
So, but wouldn't be obligated to if you have a pre-existing home that doesn't fall within those parameters, correct?
That's what I would understand.
I mean, we're only talking about new construction, so we're not putting a burden on a current homeowner.
Yeah, correct.
And if one is required, though, you're required to do the maintenance and check,
Right,
make sure
right.
that it works if you have one required already. But it wouldn't be, it'd be something that would be for new construction. And as a large or a certain percentage of the houses, and I wouldn't know what that is. You might know, Michael, but probably at least a third of them have them anyway now.
Probably.
And so we're just asking other people to put them in, and then they don't have to figure out whether they should have it or not. They know they should have it, and because several times people came before this council with their house flooded with raw sewage, and they said, well, I didn't know I was supposed to have one. Well, if everyone's supposed to have one, well, then right. But quite often, the people that their house has been flooded, they were required to have one, and they didn't have a backflow preventer, and it flooded their house. Sometimes, though, we've had ones where something's got clogged and a manhole hasn't lifted off. It's supposed to take 4 PSI to lift that manhole off. Well, it doesn't lift it off, and then the house gets flooded. And they weren't required to have one, and they come to the city, and we're not liable, their insurance company's not liable, and it's really hard for our citizens.
That's what I'm trying to get to, though, is it sounds like you're advocating requiring it for every homeowner, not just
For
new.
every new home.
Every new home.
Well, I know, but
Construction.
the issues that were just outlined, we're dealing with existing homes. I mean, it would solve the problem for all new construction, but it doesn't solve the problem for the old. I mean, we're still going to have
It
that.
doesn't solve the problem, but I think that everyone should be aware of that. I know I've increased after hearing some of these stories, which are horrible. We had a family that left, and they were gone for 2 weeks in the summer, and they came home in July, and their house had 4 feet of sewage in it after it cooked all summer, and it destroyed everything in their house, and there's no one, your insurance doesn't cover that usually unless you have a separate rider, and the city can't cover it because they're supposed to have a backflow preventer. I think it's something, and we send out things in the water bills letting people know about it, but I do think it's something that in the future we could save a lot of people heartache if it's required, and they're not going to notice. It's not going to be that big of a deal, I don't think. But so many houses are required, and I know my house is required. I have one put in, but I mean a lot of people in the room. I don't know how many people know whether their house is required or not. It's something that up to what my opinion is we should require them on new construction. I don't know how the rest of council feels, but.
Well, I think that we notified everyone, everybody in the city was notified at one time that they were required to have it, no matter how old their house was, if they fell underneath those guidelines. So my way of thinking, everybody should have had it as far as passed. It's already been required by the law that it be installed. I would like for you to add in there, make sure that maintained, make sure it's in there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I think that's required in the ordinance now to maintain them.
I mean, the current ordinance, indicates that homeowners are supposed to place those if they fall below the criteria. But I think, I agree with you, Councilor Parks, that we did do that in the past when we had some issues. We did notify and kind of put out information to the public, but I'm sure most of the public has forgotten that, and most folks don't know whether they have a backflow preventer or need one or not, unless they can go back and look at the plat.
Is that not something we can, when people move into the city and come down and get a new service, that we can't give them something that says, oh, by the way, as a part of this, you need to verify?
Or when they have
I
their
mean, how hard's
inspections?
that?
Yeah, and when you close on your house, though, you usually get a plat, and it should be on the face of the plat, so.
Yeah, but who
But
checks
then who
that?
looks at it, but.
Yeah.
Well, I just think if we're going to make it part of an ordinance, and this is, I don't want to get too far off field. I think the way the ordinance is written, and I'm not as concerned about the liability to the city, because the way the ordinance is written, it pretty much solves that. But I agree, that going forward, that would solve that. I really don't have an issue. I'm fine with amending the ordinance, look at that. I'm more concerned about the things that I think the mayor talked about, what are we doing to deal with those who this applies to? Do we do annual reminder letters and things?
We have sent out several things, I think, in the water bills over the past, but.
Over the years, and, probably this is a good opportunity to revisit this with the acting utilities director, but over the years, what we've done is what's called a legal notice of obligation that advises people about the location of the manholes. It basically shifts the burden to them, where we put it in the water bills, or and we certainly could, when people come in and fill out applications for service, we could provide them that information. Usually what that does is that generates calls, which are great, and then our staff will go out and shoot the location of the manhole and let them know if they need a backflow preventer or not.
I don't think, I wouldn't be in favor of going back and making everybody put them in.
No.
All we're saying
Very
is that
Okay.
anything built from now on, all of them will have it. I said a while ago, those that built before have already been informed by a letter, or they have the backflow preventer already in place.
Okay.
So the past that's the way it is. But they fell underneath another guideline. But I think what we're saying from now on,
Right.
all of them have it.
But if those homes have sold and the
And
previous
so a new
owner
owner,
didn't
yeah.
notify them, I think we're not required, but I think it's
Yeah.
good
And,
stewardship.
and that was the point I was getting at, is I don't have any issue with looking at updating, amending the ordinance to reflect that. I think that probably just makes sense. It solves future problems. But some of the things that the mayor was raising are people who are coming to us now with these problems. And since we're discussing this, it seems to me that now would be a good time to implement a program where we send an annual reminder, so that a home that's changed hands, they can't say, well, I never knew.
Right.
Because we hear that.
Right.
We hear that. I come in, I was never told that. Well, as a lawyer, there's something called a constructive notice and all these other things that people are put on charge. But frankly, it doesn't matter. If I'm sitting there with my house full of poo, I don't care whether I had
Right.
constructive notice, I just want to know. So I think if we're going to require people to do this going forward, we need to remind those who already own
Passed.
homes, this
Okay.
needs to be done if you sit within that
Okay.
issue. So I know.
Well, with that direction, I will move forward, and I'll work with Mr. Schwab and with the legal department and work up some language and bring that back to you as quick as we can. And then I'll also work with the city manager's office and legal on potential notification.
I think that's important.
you.
It's very hard, I think, as counselors to sit up here and tell someone, legally, we don't have any obligation, and we're sorry that your house was destroyed, but, we can't do anything for you. So it's better to be proactive and let people know so that maybe they can avoid it.
Sure. We'll definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have item 8, citizens' opportunity to address the council. We do have one person signed up, Mr. Harold Price.
My name is Harold Price.
Just
Been here before.
Your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
And I reside at 19951 Old Highway 51. I had a big old speech planned after hearing all this concern. I grew up on a farm, and things that happen, people just happen. You dealt with it as you dealt with it. So I'm not one of these people that thinks that you have to look after somebody from cradle to grave. I started 3 years ago asking for just a little help clearing the air of my home. And I'm still, 3 years later, I'm still breathing fiberglass particles out of my house here. But with rural events the way they've been going, I'm happy to be an American. I'm happy to be here in America. I'm happy to be living under a constitutional democracy. And I'm going to go home, enjoy my home anyway. And I don't know what I'm going to do about the fumes that are there. And then next door to me, it looks like a junkyard. They call it a tow yard. It looks like a junkyard. So on each side of my home, that's what I'm facing. But hey, I'm grateful. At least I'm not in Syria. But I'll just go home and breathe the fumes and be grateful that I have the right to at least say something about it. All I asked the city to do was just enforce the zoning codes. They're your zoning codes. I didn't make them. I did not make those zoning codes. And every time there's a law that comes in, I'm required to keep that law. But the guy next door to me, he doesn't keep the law. The guy on the other side of me, he doesn't keep the law. And when I ask the city to come and enforce their codes, it does not happen. But I'm grateful to be American. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Item 9, general council business. 9A, receipt and consideration of bids for possible action awarding the sale of $18,755,000 in principal amount of Series 2018 general obligation bonds. Tom Cook and John Wolf.
Mayor, City Council, Tom Cook, Finance Department. On March 20th, the council authorized the solicitation of bids to sell $18,755,000 in general obligation bonds. The notice for the sale of this series was published and sent to prospective purchasers. Bids were received today at 1 p.m. and John Wolf with Municipal Finance Services is here to review those bids with you and to make a recommendation. And then following an approval of a bid, ordinance 3526 will be on the agenda on a later item. John.
Good evening. I am not sure if you got an actual tabulation. We had sent one over to you have that in front of you, Council.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Short and sweet. You received bids today at 1 o'clock for the $18,755,000 that Mr. Cook had addressed. You received 3 bids with the low bid from Bank of America Merrill Lynch. This is a 20-year term bond, or 20 years as far as the maturity. And the low bid from Bank of America Merrill Lynch was a 3.16% interest rate. I won't read all the decimals behind that, but that was the low bid. You had a cover bid from Hutchison Shockey of a 3.18%. And the third bid was from Bank of Oklahoma through BOK Financial Securities, and they bid a 3.29%. We've been in a kind of a up and down interest rate market. I think we came in very well. We looked at other comps, issues that were sold today. That's where you really want to know how did we fare against other communities and other issuers that are rated at our same level in our area, and also looked at issuing 20-year bonds. And in looking at what are called non-bank qualified, more than $10 million issues, there were a handful of issues today, 8 to 10 issues. We had AAA bonds that had interest rates as low as a 3.02 to a 3.06, but that's a AAA rated bond. You are rated AA3 as far as the city, which is a very good rating within the state of Oklahoma. So you were very close to a AAA interest rate. Grapevine, Texas also sold bonds today, GEO bonds. They were at a 324 on their interest rate, so you were less than Grapevine, Texas. I have available, if you guys would like to see, I have the actual comps for those particular issues. So I believe that you represented very well what within the market, within your credit rating, and we're still able to borrow funds to address major projects at very competitive rates to keep the cost of capital down for your citizens. So I would recommend that you would award to Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Be glad to answer any questions that the council has.
Any questions of John?
I would make a motion to approve the bids received and award the lowest and most advantageous bid to Bank of America Merrill Lynch for the sale of $18,755,000 in general obligation bonds.
Second.
Question second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Thank you. Item 9B, consideration, discussion, possible award of the most advantageous bid to Utility Supply, Inc. for the supply of water lines and accessories for construction of water distribution system improvements along First from Detroit to Greeley. Kenny.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Kenny Schwab, Assistant City Manager over Operations. The item before you is for a 12-inch water line that runs along the east side of First Street from Detroit 3 blocks north to Greeley. Our crews will construct it. The purchase of this is actually with the Community Development Block Grant, so CDBG, and it actually is to help the low moderate income with fire flow protection. It'll tie into the old 24-inch that runs up there near Greeley, so this will help that circulation. Now, in full clarity, we actually considered this item at the Broken Arrow Municipal Authority meeting on April the 3rd, and it was approved. After that meeting, came to staff's attention that this really should have been an item placed under the city council because it's CDBG, not under the utility authority. So we've placed it back before you. The amount is $31,235.55. So I would ask for your approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll make a motion to award the most advantageous bid to Utility Supply Incorporated for the supply of water line, pipes, and accessories.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 9C, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of BACP 161, Broken Arrow Comprehensive Plan, Timber Ridge Cottages. Larry.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. BACP 161 is a request to change the comprehensive plan designation on an 8.05 acre tract of land from level 4 to level 3. Applicant is interested in rezoning the property from to RM residential multifamily with a PUD for multifamily senior development. RM is considered to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan in level 3. The underdeveloped property, which is located 1/4 mile south of Kenosha Street, east of 209th East Avenue, is currently zoned A1, agricultural with specific use permit 164 overlay. The property has been platted as Lot 1, Block 1 of T-Town Golf Ranch and is in the northernmost lot created by BAL lot split BAL 2026, which was approved by the Planning Commission on October 12, 2017. The draft PUD submitted with BACP 161 proposes 74 units of senior multifamily housing with a mix of duplex and multiplex, and also with an apartment-style dwelling of 28 units. Access to the proposed development is through the entrance off of 209th East Avenue, and then in addition to a stub street that's being proposed to the south for shared access. A future access is also proposed to the west for when a frontage road is to be built along the Creek Turnpike. 80 feet of the right-of-way for a future frontage road is proposed to be dedicated along with the western boundary of the plat when the property does come before council for rezoning and a platting process. In their meeting on March 22, 2018, the Planning Commission recommended approval of BACP 161 by a vote of 3-0, as recommended by staff. Staff recommended that BACP 161 be approved subject to the property being replatted in a PUD similar in context to the draft PUD that was submitted with BACP 161 being submitted with a future zoning request. No one spoke in opposition to this item. Staff does recommend approval as presented by Planning Commission and staff, and the applicant is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Have any questions of Larry or the applicant?
So we're looking at just changing tonight, just changing the comprehensive plan.
That is
correct.
correct. That is correct.
My question then would be, is the draft PUD and all that they sent on along with it, is that attached to this in any way? Or can this change in comprehensive plan be changed later on?
What is being proposed tonight is that if council does make a recommendation for approval in the staff report's recommendation and by the Planning Commission's recommendation, is that in order for this PUD or this change in the comprehensive plan to be approved and move forward, a similar one has to come forward with it. So this change of the comprehensive plan can only be approved if a similar PUD is presented with this comp plan.
So it's like a tentative approval?
Exactly.
Okay.
That way we can ensure that the change just isn't just a blanket change.
And I wouldn't want it just sitting out there either.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. No more questions? Okay. Thank you, Larry. To entertain a motion?
Make a motion to approve BACP 161 as recommended by Planning Commission and staff.
I second.
Okay. Motion second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Okay, next item is consideration, discussion, and possible approval, authorization to execute resolution number 1099. Beth Ann.
Yes, sir. This particular resolution allows the legal department to enter into a final journal entry with Juan Rodriguez in a lawsuit that he and his attorney filed against the city of Broken Arrow. This has been the subject of a few discussions in executive session. We were able to negotiate a resolution of $125,000, which we consider to be actually pretty reasonable under the circumstances. He did undergo a number of surgeries totaling $183,794.25 as a result of this accident. This would also include property damage. So it actually is probably a reasonable resolution for the city. We would respectfully request that you approve Resolution 1099 and authorize its execution.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 1099 and authorize its execution.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Okay, item 9E, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a reappointment of Pablo Aguirre to Broken Arrow City Council or Broken Arrow Planning Commission. Can appoint people to City Council.
You're trying to give one of our jobs.
Yeah, I would. Who wants to go? Okay.
Council Mayor, no problem. Planning Commission members are appointed by a 3-year term. The term of the Planning Commission member for Pablo Aguirre will expire on May 5th, 2018. As Council may remember, Mr. Aguirre filled the remaining term for Caroline Isabel Carr, whose term expires on May 5th, 2018. He was appointed to the Planning Commission this past February, and it is his desire to continue to serve the city of Broken Arrow in his position.
And he was my appointment, so I would make the recommendation to approve the appointment of Pablo Aguirre to the City of Broken Arrow Planning Commission for a 3-year term to expire May 5th, 2021.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Item 9E, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the reappointment of Fred Durrell. Larry?
Yes, Planning Commissioner Fred Durrell, his term will expire also on May 5th, 2018. Mr. Durrell has expressed his willingness to continue to serve on the Planning Commission, and if approved by council tonight, so far Mr. Durrell has served 12 years on the Planning Commission. This would be another 3-year term for him, and it is his desire to continue.
And he is my appointment, so I would make a motion we approve the reappointment of Fred Durrell to serve another 3-year term on the Planning Commission to expire May the 5th, 2021.
Second?
Motion second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Item 9G, consideration, discussion, and approval of reappointment of Ricky Jones to Broken Arrow Planning Commission.
Just one more. Planning Commissioner Ricky Jones, his term will expire also on May 5th, 2018. Mr. Jones has requested that he continue and has served well on the Planning Commission. His expertise is stellar and has helped Planning Commission and guide them along with their processes. He has so far served 15 years, and it is his desire to continue for another 3.
I make a motion to approve the reappointment of Ricky Jones to serve another 3-year term on the Planning Commission to expire May the 5th, 2021.
Second.
You beat him.
Motion second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Okay, item 10, preview ordinances are none. Item 11, ordinances. 11A, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3525. Beth Ann.
Yes, sir. This particular ordinance allows neighborhood electric vehicles to be driven in the downtown Rose District residential overlay, subject to a variety of restrictions. Very exciting. I think that we actually had a preview of those vehicles last week, or 2 weeks ago, if memory serves. This ordinance is the vehicle by which that change is made, and so we would request that you adopt ordinance 3525 and approve the emergency clause.
I was just going to point out the lovely pun that was just inserted there.
It's my next to last ordinance, so I had to.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 3525.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes.
Move for the emergency clause.
Second?
Motion second, roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Item 11B, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3526, an ordinance providing for the issuance of $18,755,000 general obligation bonds series 2018A by the City of Broken Arrow. Beth Ann.
Yes, sir. Earlier in the meeting, you approved the sale of the $18 million and change in general obligation bonds. This ordinance is the mechanism by which that sale is effectuated. It also provides for payment of interest and principal and providing for the levy. I would respectfully request that you adopt ordinance number 3526 and then approve the emergency clause.
I'd make a motion to adopt ordinance number 3526.
Second?
Motion second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes.
Move for emergency clause?
Second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Wimpy? Yes. Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. Item 12, remarks and inquiries by governing body members. I had a couple. One, we have participated in this Wylands Water Conservation Contest, and we found out today that we're number 18th in the nation. which is really exciting when you think hundreds of cities that apply. So we'd like to encourage everyone to go to the website and sign up so we can continue to move up. Hopefully Chris and I talked about it'd be great this year if we could be in the top 10 our first year out, but we're on our way, so please sign up and participate in the water conservation.
We were on 25th just a few days ago, so
Yeah.
we're moving up.
And what is the website again?
The website, I don't know if Krista probably knows it.
mywaterpledge.com.
mywaterpledge.com. Sure, we've all signed up, but it's hard to remember those websites. So the one other thing I had was today is going to be Beth Ann's last council meeting, and after 20 years of doing such an outstanding job for our city as our city attorney, and you're going to be missed. Even though at times we, you feel like we're tough on the council when you tell us we can't do this and we can't do that, but you're always looking out for our best interest and the city and the employees of the city and their best interest. So I just want to say you're definitely going to be missed and you're going to have hard shoes to fill. I don't envy the city manager trying to find someone to take your place, but that's going to be hard to do. But just want to thank you for your service.
But you've made saying no fun. And taking those group photographs of us and sending them to you will not be nearly as much fun anymore.
Yeah, you made us, we were afraid to go to conventions. We stay in separate hotels.
We live in fear, yeah. I have a Beth Ann story. When I was a very new attorney, probably practicing for 3 months, I didn't want to do criminal law, but I was talked into taking some misdemeanor case. It was some like petty larceny or something. And at that time, our illustrious city attorney was a city prosecutor, and I think her office was crammed into this room back here. And I went in to ask her to sign a plea agreement to deal with this petty larceny. And many of you may not know, but petty is spelled P-E-T-T-Y, unless you're talking about the law, in which it's P-E-T-I-T-E. Well, being a new attorney, I wrote it P-E-T-T-Y. And I was scared of the prosecutor, and she pointed out my spelling error, and I've never let her live that down, largely because she was right, and I hate to, but our city attorney has given many, many excellent years of service to this council. Being an attorney, I know how hard it is to have clients who don't listen to you, so I've always tried to be a client who listened to my lawyer. But I always knew I was getting good advice, the best, and I will miss her both as my attorney and as my friend being here. So those are my thoughts. The other thing I wanted to mention is I know that in the last couple of weeks our city had a chance or an opportunity to help serve and help fight fires out in western Oklahoma, and was a part of that. And having been born in Beaver County, way out west, and spent much of my childhood there, there are a lot of people out there who are losing homes and land, and I'm grateful that my hometown here was able to be a part of that. And I appreciate that, those firefighters and who participated in that. Thank you. Trust me, Western Oklahoma appreciates it more than you know.
I will say that unlike the rest of you, though Beth Ann is retiring, her son and my granddaughter will be going to college together, so I will get to interact with her from time to time. So I will keep you up to date.
This is not about Beth Ann. I've already.
Oh, darn.
Do you have something to say about Beth Ann?
I was just, thank you for the first year. You've helped me through a lot of processes.
And I certainly already thanked her. She's kept us going right down the straight road, and I've always felt comfortable, and there's not been one time she hasn't made a comment or recommendation that you just don't, you do what your city attorney says. And I have, and I'm still out of jail, so I appreciate it. I would add, not to do with Beth Ann, but to remind the city council that on Saturday, we're supposed to, I volunteered us to pick up trash on Main Street. I'm hoping that you show up for that. I haven't heard how many of our youth city council has committed to do that, but I'm hoping that some of them show up also. So we'll meet at that northwest corner of the PAC about 8:15.
And hopefully the
And really,
rain
anyone
holds
can
up.
join us.
And hope the rain holds up right. Yeah, anybody can join us. In fact, the more we like it, the more we don't have to bend over and pick up as much. But anyway, we're picking up the 1 mile at Main Street, which we've committed to do for a long time. So don't forget that. Put that on your calendars.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny, for volunteering us. We appreciate that.
If you don't show up, you won't have anybody to sit in here and make a motion to adjourn on some of these.
Okay, well, any more comments? We'll go to item 13, remarks and inquiries from I'm not even looking at my list here. It's the city manager's comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I have a few things, and I'll try to go quickly. First off, we are working on the 2019 fiscal year budget and looking to get that to you sometime in early May for you to look at, so we could be in that process of deliberating and having the council ultimately approve the spending plans for all of the departments and funds for 2019 in May and June. Coinciding with that, I would also like to extend a welcome to Cindy Arnold joining the team yesterday. We had a reception for her, and she had to actually take that oath twice. The first time yesterday morning and also this evening, and want to welcome her and just once again thank Tom Cook for serving as our acting finance director since last summer. We certainly appreciate his efforts, and he continues to be a very valuable key member of the finance department and leadership. And I just want to say thank you, Tom. Council received last week a copy of a letter that the mayor sent on behalf of the city to the White House staff regarding the president's proposed plan for rebuilding America, the infrastructure. And it was a very detailed letter, and I wanted to mention it tonight because what we talked about doing was making sure that the president knew from Broken Arrow's perspective how important infrastructure is. And the letter was written in such a way to show support for that initiative, which is working its way through the legislative process right now. We're going to be on a phone call Friday, the mayor, Mr. Schwab, and myself, to hear the latest on what's going on with that, and then I'll update the council on exactly where we're at. We also wanted to demonstrate the commitment that Broken Arrow has to maintaining and rebuilding its infrastructure. So we wrote it in such a way that we talked about how the CDBG has been helpful to us for the last 20-some years and how we spent it. Then we talked about the general obligation bond package, and we also threw in the public-private partnerships that have actually helped parlay the public dollars into more private dollars, especially within the Rose District. And we're hoping that staying engaged in this process is going to allow us to apply for funds when we know what the program's going to be. The good thing about this initiative is it is in addition to the existing authorizations for STB program as well as the Tiger program, so we can continue to apply for funds when they're available through those two programs, and then continue to put the funds in infrastructure, as you did earlier this evening, for the CDBG funds, which are very important for the area or two of town that funds are eligible. So if the council members have any question about that letter, please let me know, and we'll keep you posted on the phone call that we're having Friday. The next thing I want to mention is next month I'm going to ask the council to discuss changing the name of the events park to another name that is more recognizable for marketing purposes. That's something that I had mentioned to you by way of an email communication earlier this year. I think that with the number of events that are growing out there, the potential that there is for events, the fact that we're making improvements and there's additional improvements that are planned for that area, and speaking to members of the leadership team and individuals in community leader positions, I think we need to talk about that. So we'll be not asking. I think we'll have a discussion, and then if it's appropriate, then we would taking time to get that out there, and then have the council come back maybe the second meeting. But I do want to have the discussion and get your thoughts about it, because I think it's going to be important as that park grows. A couple other things is I also wanted to add to Vice Mayor Udi's comments about sending firefighters out to western Oklahoma. The chief got a phone call last Friday about the need for assistance, and so he immediately contacted me, and I said absolutely yes. And as a result of that, we sent 3 firefighters out to provide to assistance. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank those firefighters that actually went out there on behalf of the city of Broken Arrow. We were very well represented. Everybody came back safe. Mission, they were out there working very hard for those fellow Oklahomans that were struggling from those fires. You know, what's cool about it is the fact that Broken Arrow Fire Department has a history of helping. You know, for example, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a mutual aid call to Sand Springs where they needed assistance. And the chief made the decision to provide a brush truck to go help the folks in Sand Springs because obviously we're a region, and it's extremely important. Their folks come to our city to shop and to basically to see our businesses. I hear about it all the time, and so I really appreciate the fact that he sent folks to Sand Springs. And then there was a fallen firefighter recently in another community where we sent a truck to basically support like we always do. That's a tradition, and so those are kind of things that I believe are important, that as a leader of this state, leading city, is that when we have those opportunities, that we should provide service and support when we can, because not every city has that ability, and we have some great resources, great workers and equipment, and it was great to see us go out there. So thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate you recognizing the fire department. So, and then finally, Beth Ann, is this her last meeting? I did get to say a few things about her. For me personally, at her little reception that we had beforehand, and I just wanted to touch on just a couple of things. 20 years serving in any position in municipal government is a long time. I just passed 30 years about 3 weeks ago, and you stop to reflect on what you've accomplished. And, you know, when you think about the last 20 years, the growth that Broken Arrow has had and what has happened, and you look at the intricacies of and the complexities of the deals, agreements, the guidance that council was given, and you look at the fact that she was here, you know, for the last 20 years. You've seen Bass Pro, you've seen sales tax rebates agreements to promote and stimulate private investment, the Warren Theater. You look at the TIF district, the agreement we have, flight safety, most recently the agreement with Milestone to actually put together the language to promote that type of development. In addition to all the support that she provides to the department's day-to-day, she definitely has left a mark, and I want to thank you, Beth Ann. It's been a pleasure serving with her, and her shoes are going to be big to fill. I can tell you. I know Trevor's looking for the opportunity to serve as an acting position, and we'll begin the recruitment. But you definitely made your mark, and I'd just like to say thank you. So thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Michael. We do have executive sessions, so I'd entertain a motion for a brief recess to go into Bama and Beta.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Wimpy? Here. Parks?
Here.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, here, yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. I will call the Broken Arrow Municipal Authority meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Wimpy?
Here.
Parks?
Here.
Lester?
Here.
Udi?
Here.
Thurman?
Here. Item 3, consideration consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed?
Move for approval of consent agenda.
Second?
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Wimpy?
Yes.
Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. There's no public hearings, no general business, no executive session.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Wimpy?
Yes.
Parks?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Udi?
Yes.
Thurman?
Yes. I will call the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Wimpy?
Here.
Parks?
Here.
Lester?
Here.
Udi?
Yes, I'm here.
Thurman?
Yes. Here. Consideration consent agenda. Item 3, are there any items to be removed?
Move for approval of the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Wimpy,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Foodie,
Yes.
Thurman.
Yes. If there's no general authority business, no executive session.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion second, roll call, please.
Wimpy,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Foodie,
Yes.
Thurman.
Yes. We're back in regular city council. I would entertain a motion for a brief recess so we can clear the room for executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Motion second, roll call, please.
Wimpy,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Foodie,
Yes.
Thurman.
Yes.
Someday.